Hey guys, welcome. My name's Matt. This video is going to be for anyone who wants to get started with local AI image and video generations. I've got 2.5 years experience, and I wanted to show you the theory and the process behind AI locally, where we generate your first image, learn to control it with ControlNets, pose, depth, and then Inpainting, where we fix the faces and learn to edit all of those AI mistakes. And then finally, we're going to take that image and animate it locally with a video. So we're going to start with Forge and go into Comfy. This whole process will be about understanding AI locally and how to really tame it and control it, build confidence right from the beginning, and move through logically with each step, building on the other. So to get started with your first image generation, you just need an NVIDIA graphics card. And then as we progress, you are going to require at least about 8 gigs of VRAM on your system. So just trust the process and let's get started. First thing I want you to install is Stability Matrix, and that'll make sense why in a moment. It's a really great tool for installing your Comfy and other AI generative apps and then sharing the models and the output together. It also is really easy to keep things updated. So I love this. It's free. You can download it from their official page or from GitHub. When you install it, first thing you'll have, if you get the blue warning saying this isn't safe, don't worry about that. Just bypass that. I'm going to install it on my queue because it's a demo, but I want you to install this on the SSD drive if you have the space. Estimate it's going to take up 60 and then possibly 100 gigs, and then you're going to get to about 200 gigs. So you definitely need some space on your SSD drive, but it'll really help with speed. Don't install the portable mode. Install it like a regular app. You don't need to install this. And then for the first thing I want you to do is actually install Forge. Okay, it's your first app, or Comfy, but I'm going to start with Forge today because Comfy is really intimidating. I think the noodles and the nodes, sure, yeah, you get the most out of it. But when you really want to understand the theory, I find it much easier for me to explain this to you with Forge. And the reason is, we'll be clear in a second. So install that, and then pick a model. We're going to come down, we're going to use Epic Realism. Okay, so pick Epic Realism and click download. And you're going to have all of these other shared folder stuff, say all that, install these requirements. And this is why it's so much easier. Before I had to make an entire video about how to install Git for Windows, and you have to literally code this thing in and put parameters. So this makes things so much easier, especially if you need to reinstall. And updating is great. Every day it'll just say, you just click update and you can keep this thing fresh. All right, so you have things installed. Now this is my copy that I'm using every day, and you can see I have various apps. I suggest that you just start with Comfy and Forge. Like I mentioned, let's launch Forge, and we'll get it started. Assuming you've got that one model downloaded, it'll be there ready to go. And we're just going to use SDXL, and you can still create great stuff. I'm sure you've heard of Flux, and so I really just want you to get started with your first image, and then feel really comfortable having some success right off the bat. I don't want you to get discouraged. So this is going to load all of these things probably for the first time. And then what happens is it'll pop up with a web address. And the browser is the interface for all of our AI tools. This runs in the background, and it's like a client. And now we use this web address that's going to pop up. And it should just pop up automatically right here. If it doesn't, you hit that button. And you can use any browser. I think Chrome actually has probably the best support for this, but I'm a Firefox user. So it should look exactly like this as the default, all right? And if it looks a little bit different, it's just the version, and all of the approach still is the same, all right? So we're gonna check XL, because the first model you downloaded was an SDXL model, that Stable Diffusion Extra Large. And now you're gonna have your model that you just downloaded, and I believe I said download Extra Realism. Doesn't have to match. Once you have that, then you simply type in a prompt. Okay, I was trying to come up with some prompts, and every time I just said a woman on a beach or a woman sitting in the street, they were all nude. This model must be overly sensual, because look what she's doing to these poor French fries. And we have a woman eating McDonald's in a car. All right, so we're just going to use this as an example. It's something I wasn't expecting, and we'll just kind of roll with I got to change that. Okay, there we go. All right, so that's normal. That's really normal. Great. And it's just a woman having lunch. You can see I'm not going crazy with the prompts. I'm not asking ChatGPT to write me some elaborate prompt. For the most part, I really like simple prompts. You see, I'm not even doing any negatives or anything complicated. It's just the model and a prompt, okay, and the resolution. And we have this presentable image that clearly looks like AI. Okay, so there we go. We made our first image, and we can all celebrate and post it on social media because nobody's ever seen this before. For the most part, you don't need to change any of this. There are so many, and if you start thinking I have to go through all these, you don't. The default now are so great. They used to come out with these every few weeks, and I'd spend half a day trying all the different combinations. Trust me when I say just leave that. And steps is going to be a step up in quality versus how long it takes to generate. So if I do 35, the seed is random down here, so I'm going to get a new lady eating lunch. But I'm hopefully, there will be a little bit better detail. She might be a little more realistic. Whatever, it's fine. You don't have, there's nothing to be improved by going past 40 steps. All right, so see, it's 2 seconds, and it's 7 steps, and it doesn't work. But if I do 87, it's not like suddenly my problems are solved, right? You can see there's just the same errors. Nothing has really been improved. That's why there's just a simple fact that the default steps work pretty well. I generally use 40 as my go-to when I'm using SDXL. What I haven't shown you yet is the real trick to this whole process. Now that we have our image created, we're going to want to edit it. Now, if you have a photo that you have or something that you want to edit, you have to go into the image to image tab. But since we're already have this image, we want to port it over. We're going to click this button, and that's going to push it into our canvas area here. And we have our image to image tab now. We're going to have some new features. If we come down here, we're going to have the CFG scale and the denoising. All right, those make a big difference how we manipulate this image. There's 2 things at play. You have this base image that you're working from, plus these prompts. And the more important slider here is the denoising strength. This makes a big difference into the image. What it's doing is dissolving this image. It's actually adding noise, and then it's going to use a combination of this image and the prompts to regenerate it. Now, if we put this at, let's say 100%, we're going to say, I'm going to use percentages because it's easier to visualize, I believe, that the denoising is set to 1. So we're going to say 100% of this image is going to be completely generated from the prompts again. Just like if I were to just say dragon, then we're going to get something completely different. Now, so we'll go back. You see how that's a 100% new image. So let's go back to something that's practical, and we have our prompts. And to show you the denoising strength, if I bring this down to, say, even 40%, okay, 0.4, we're going to now be using this original image. We still keep using this, but our prompts almost have very little effect. Clearly it's not night and it's not winter, and it doesn't even look like the time of day has changed. And this is probably one of the more challenging parts to get right, is that not only are we worrying about the prompts, but this slider. And you'll start to understand where the sort of sweet spot lies. And then it changes with the ControlNets, and we're going to get to that. So has it the time of day changed? Not quite. So let's go up to 75%, 76. There we go. All right. So we've maintained it. She's still wearing the dress, but you can almost see it as almost like a time of day slider at this point. You can see that it is definitely getting, the lights are on, and things are starting to get a little darker. And now we'll go up to 81, and you can almost see it's like a curve that as soon as you get to a point, it just drops off, and now we're almost using none of this original image. The sort of volume of sky is still there, very similar. There's still like a light building in the background, and there's this orange glow that's kind of coming off to the side. It's only using 19% of our base image, and as we go up, we get to a certain tipping point where very little of that original image will be maintained. That's kind of useful. I mean, you actually can do a fair bit with just denoising. Now, of course, the next thing is that we want to maintain something. Let's say we want to maintain her pose. OpenPose is a great place to start. We're going to have this image. I made a new image to show you a character with actual, their hands up, so we can really see how this works. And we typed in realistic photo of a Viking. Now, remember, if we just generated something brand new, like 100% of a new image, then we're going to clearly have something that's just completely random, right? But we want to hold on to this pose that we have. And you can imagine you can drag in any image that you want into this workspace and use that as the pose. And we have, this sometimes will pop up. This is the first one. You can see that it's going to make a square. Just click over Resize By and keep your resolution that you wanted from your previous image so it matches. And we're going to turn on the ControlNet right down here, expand it, turn it on, and select Open Pose. And you'll see the model automatically, this preprocessor, this decides the type of image that we're going to generate, and the AI knows how to reference and use that image we're generating and then control the output. And we're going to open the model. You probably only have one. I'm going to leave a link below to get this model. You want the thighbald. You can also download it through Civet, the websites, Hugging Face, and of course, Model Browser. And download a bunch of, we need depth. And so when you see a link, just download all of those models that I provided and put them in your ControlNet or model ControlNet directory. Now click on Pixel Perfect. This will match the resolution. And I think that's it. We don't need to worry about anything else. The control weight just tells you how much attention to give to the to that ControlNet. So let's just generate this now, and everything should be connected. We have really high denoise, and we have the matching resolution. I can turn the samplings up, but that doesn't really make a difference. By the way, while this is loading, if you want to see your output, simply just click this button, and it's going to open up your folder containing all your imagery. And there we have it. It even has the right amount of fingers. That okay, there's that happens, right? As you know about AI in their hands. So now we have this pose, and we can type in anything we want. And so you can see while that's generating, this is the image that it's produced. For the ControlNet is can be all sorts of things. So we'll show you the next one. We'll do depth, but you can here we are. We has all the, and even his face. It's pretty wild, and that's the ControlNet pose. Now I'll show you how to use the depth ControlNet. This is probably my favorite ControlNet model. We're going to switch out of this and click on depth. Go down, actually first go to here, depth anything version 2. That's definitely the best. I'm going to click on the full strength one here. This one's really good. And I'll leave a link below. Hopefully I can find that model again. And then we're just going to generate, I have the prompt, realistic photo of New York City at night and winter. And a big part of my AI work has been conversion. I love the idea of taking something, a rendering, because I come from an architectural background. I love the idea of taking a rendering and making it new, turning it day to night. And you can see some of this work I've done with my LoRa models and the Google Earth conversions that I do. And you can see where it doesn't quite work fully. I mean, it's amazing. Like, look at how absolutely phenomenal this whole conversion is. It's really, really cool, and works well. Like this is a really great conversion. I'm pretty happy with it. If you were doing this as an architecture project, you can't have anything be interpreted, right? That sign would matter. There's a lot of stuff that would work, but you can see that it's done just a great job. My LoRa models, by the way, would turn more of these lights on and hold more of the, contains a lot of additional training data that is like a texture pack. And so it really knows how to turn an image from day to night, or to provide better sidewalks, for example, better road textures. It has all these elements that we need. So that's not a sales pitch. This is just an example I'm familiar with. So you can see there's a lot of errors. And that's okay. I mean, this is the idea that you're using this is what it's created. In the rendering world, we call that a Z depth pass. I'm Canadian, so it's Z. That's the proper way to say it. It's incredible how accurate it can interpret this image and put the depth on. For additional control, you can turn on additional control nets, and maybe something like the canny. You turn this on, and now you use the that's flux. And then you use the canny diffuser, and then what that'll do is will help with that sign. So we're going to push this on, and then also you can change your denoise. You see I'm still using kind of 100% of the prompts, but you can control this, and this is where that flexibility. I can make a whole video just going on, and I actually have all those tutorials that really talk about what settings you need, where your denoising has to be, and this is from thousands of generations. I have figured out where to really fine-tune these control nets and to get the most out of converting models, because particularly you want to keep so much of the image, but you also want to convert it. This is essentially what Flux Context, which is really popular right now. So Flux Context sort of works the same way, but if you try to convert this image with Flux and there's just no way it can pick up all this detail. So I actually still think that this is a really viable method. You can see that having two control nets has put too much restraint on this image, and so you have to dial down the weights, all right? And so there's a lot of just fine tuning that has to be involved when you're really trying to convert this. And then just while I'm here, one thing you want to check out, please check out my free upscaler. I have an upscaler and then does this incredible, it generates a prompt for each tile of this image, and it can go all the way up to 10K. My tutorials are really about, and the lures that I offer are really about taking this high quality level of detail and blowing it up, maintaining and creating new detail so that the image looks really, really, really crisp. And we even talk about how we go into faces and we correct everything. So speaking of faces, let's do some inpainting. What I'm about to show you is going to change your life, so pay close attention. We are going to open the Image to Image tab and click on Inpaint, and we're going to fix the derpiest faces in this shitty AI image, okay? This is obviously unacceptable, and there's even a weird generation blob right here. Now, everything's the default, and we're gonna simply take this mask tool. This is all the defaults, by the way, so just hit refresh. You can shift, and I'm gonna show you exactly what to do with your AI image, okay? We're gonna take a mask, and we're not even gonna prompt this thing crazily. We're just gonna type in realistic photo. You're going to come down here, sampling steps 30 to 40. Click on only masked. That's important. It's going to take that mask and crop it right down so that the faces at a distance, which are always poorly generated by AI, is now going to take up that whole frame and generate right around a box around this mask. And that is going to allow this face to be generated properly. So we come down here, we have the size. This is the canvas area around the mask, and we have our denoise. Everything's the same. Generate and watch the magic. Music, please. Drum roll. And there we go. Now if you bring down the padding if you need to, just a little bit closer, but that, you see how that's done basically a full generation, scaled it down, and then put it perfectly and taken all the context and then applied it and fixed it. So we can do that with all these faces if we want, and we're going to simply bring this new image over because we don't want this anymore. We want to have the generated image, and then we go through, and now we're just going to paint this guy's face. If you want to do this all automatically, you can look at the extension. It's called Add Detailer. I believe I have a YouTube video about that. We didn't have a man, so we'll just put in man, dark skin. It just so happened, I guess, that when I selected the first person, it kind of had this default. Oh, so there we go. We got a little bit of an error. Now, that's okay. It's simply a matter of the denoising. So let's bring the denoising down. And we're still don't need any control nets because we don't really want to control that messed up face. We really would just want it to be, there we go. The denoise is, as I mentioned, this is that real fine-tuned area between using the old base image and your prompt. And so here we go. That guy's fixed. Looks amazing. Amazing. Like you can see already this image is starting to turn into something that's believable. We can even just type this out, highlight that error up there, and just type in realistic photo. And what it's doing is it's inferring all the context around it. So this padding right here makes a difference because when it's zooming in, okay, so that area right now that I tried, it didn't change. So the denoising again, you see, it's almost a case-by-case situation. So the denoising now I've raised to 0.85, and it's possible that because it's black, that is actually becoming a difficult thing to fix. So it's denoising it and kind of, adding the noise, but there's nothing at all to build from. And in that case, you probably have to go into Photoshop and clone it and then repair it. That's what's happening here. You can see it's just kind of straightening it out. So you do have to do a little prep. So we'll skip that as just an example of a failure. That's okay. And now we're going to clear that mask. And you can't go mask here, and do them all. You have to have it individually because it has to kind of make that cropping, that auto cropping that it's doing. That's, again, just to remind you, that's the only masked. If you did this whole picture, it's going to generate the whole thing again, but just in that area, and then you're left with the exact problem that you had before because the face is too far away. All right, so that happened because I didn't check my noise. So bring the noise back down, generate. That looks pretty good, I guess. I mean, yeah, sure. This is just a little, you could do both these faces at the same time. And maybe I'll just put in human. All right, we prompt that. And you can do that with all sorts of things. Text, logos. The text is always a problem. SDXL is terrible at text. This is where you would kind of run into a limitation of this. But you can see how quickly this worked. Didn't like the faces at the same time. That's because, perfect example, didn't clear the last mask. Okay, so I have to clear that one, and it can't do too far away. Get that hand in there as well. And let's see, we can check our hands, and we can do the same process with hands. So that's huge, right? We could prompt in old man, whatever we wanted. It depends on how specific you want to get. And then we'll try that. Remember, port it over, and then let's have a look at her hands here, and we'll just say hands and newspaper. And a rule is that if I forgot to clear the last mask. All right, a rule of AI is that if you don't know what you're looking at, the chances are the AI doesn't know what it's looking at either. Probably female hands. Okay, and then slightly adjust the noise. And you see there's no control nets. This works really quickly. There we go. You might have to do one or two, but we're starting to get away from the fact that this is an AI generation. And I don't know, the whole thing now, I just realized that the image is like a weird platform plus the subway behind it. I'll just add that if you are enjoying this tutorial and that you like how I've presented it, please leave a comment below and do that whole like and subscribe thing. It really helps the algorithms. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, many of you probably skipped right to this point and you want to get generating video. And we're going to open up Comfy. First thing you're going to notice is that you might have a bunch of red marked out nodes. And these are the nodes, and they're connected by noodles. So when you have the red blanked out nodes, we have to resolve that. That's the first thing you do. And you have to have Comfy Manager installed. I'll leave a link for that below. You put that into the packages, Comfy, custom nodes, Comfy Manager. All right, put that directory in there, reboot, and then you're going to have this. That's, I don't know, maybe it's baked into it now by the time you go to install this. So Comfy Manager, and then you click on Install Missing Custom Nodes. Restart, you got to clear all the missing nodes. That's the first thing you have to do, all right? It has to look like this. The next thing you do is you click Run. You'll notice the first thing that'll happen is that it can't find the models. So you probably haven't installed the models, and that's okay. I do that all the time as well. You might have some of them already installed. And then what you do is you click, you find it, and you match the names. It's that simple. 3 models that you use. I'm showing this is for hopefully anyone with 8 gigabytes because that's how low I've got the memory usage. Anything less than 8 gigabytes, I wouldn't bother trying to generate video, okay? So we're going to go through it real quick, and then you've hit Control Enter. Once you have everything loaded and that you're able to generate this, something like a woman in the rain should pop up because that's the prompt. And we're going to come over here and look at the prompt, negative prompt and positive prompt. So a close-up of a beautiful woman in the rain, and we're going to set our resolution. Now, resolution eats up a lot of VRAM. 2 things that will eat up your VRAM, and that is the total number of pixels in the image combined with the number of frames. So you think about all the frames and all the pixels, and you think about that taking up enormous space in the VRAM, and that's where you can max out the video. And so you have to trade off resolution or frame count or resolution. All right, so now you have to use fixed numbers. You can't just put 600 by 400. You have to use multiples of 64 and whatever. I'm not going to bother trying to explain that. Then we have our Tcache, and Tcache is basically a speed up system that generates the video faster by making assumptions of what the next few frames will be. The higher this value, the better the quality, the slower the rendering. This number, don't change it right now. That's a longer process to worry about, so just leave that. I can't explain it. It's confusing to me. And so simply just change this value from 2 to 6. Okay, lower, faster, but less quality. The rest of the stuff, don't worry about it. This is to turn the space, this kind of the fuzzy noise, into an image. So if you want to know how long your video is going to be, you take the total number of frames divided by the frame count. So here we're doing about a 2.5 second video. This node is incredible. It takes some of the load of the VRAM off and puts it onto your CPU RAM. And of course, the CPU is way slower at calculating AI. However, of course, the biggest problem is maxing out your VRAM. So this takes it, pushes some of it off at the cost of speed. Set that at 15, providing that you have the right amount of CPU RAM. And I'm not sure how to predict that for your PC. So if you have different errors, try adjusting this. That's definitely something to play with when you're getting OOM out of memory errors. So I think that's it. So we're just going to generate, and the denoise doesn't apply at all. It has to be a 100 or 1 because, all right, so I don't know, it's a bit of a fail. I'll do another one while we're talking. And so the denoise strength, in this case, we're not using any type of base image. So you have to put it up to 1 or 100. There's very few cases in which you're producing video where you would lower that denoise. Now, we have all of these things that you might have seen me work on, right? Multi-talk, you can download these in bed. So you drag a noodle out, you get this start working, all right? Then it's a whole separate process. There's no way I can go into it right now. This is really something you just want to get working. Here's a bonus tip. We're going to go over to Workflow, Comfy Nodes, and inside, a lot of the nodes are example workflows. And if we go to Kaji's, all right, we load up the work. These are that contains all the WAN video nodes that I'm using here. And if we go into examples, example workflows, here we go. Take in, depending on when this is updated, there's your multi-talk workflow. All right, so if you want to try multi-talk, get all the models installed. Okay, Will Smith eating pasta. I guess it doesn't know who Will Smith is, and yeah, that's not very good. Now, the reason the quality is going to diminish is because I made this for 8 GB cards. If you have anything more, then you simply go and download the 14B model, 14 billion parameters, and then simply go to text to video and select this one, and then we're probably going to have a really great Will Smith eating pasta. All right, you can see that's not Will Smith. The model doesn't know who Will Smith is, but you can see that that's, I mean, it's not even the same thing. It barely looks like I'm demonstrating the same product, which I'm not. The difference between the 14B model and the 1.3 or the 3B model is just night and day. Of course, it's going to eat up more VRAM. Maybe it takes about 4 or 5 times longer. So if you've got the RAM, don't even bother with the 3B and just have a look at the 14B model. And then this is the quantized version. All right, so to have a look at that, you get everything from the, like I said, you can see how many I have experimented with, and you get all those from the Kajai website page. I'm going to leave a link for that below. All right, now it's time to take everything we've learned and put it together, and so that we have real control over our video using image to video. So now you know how to make an image and fine-tune it, correct it, get exactly the way you want it. And now we're going to animate that image, and that's really important. You know, this is still guesswork. This is the problem with VO3. Any type of text to video is still just a slot machine randomized output. And so we're going to take this workflow, and now I have a new one where I've expanded on it. You can see that I've added on to our existing workflow, and instead of using an empty canvas, we're going to use our image. And then we're going to plug that in right here. Instead of the way it was plugged in before, we're going to have it attached to image embeds. And to do that, now you're going to need a fourth model, and that's the clip vision. This is a vision model that will interpret what it's seeing and then kind of combine it with your prompt, I guess you could say. So there's two things. That now we have the text encoder taking the text to a visual and visual to text, and then it kind of all comes together, and that's what our sampler does. It generates, providing all the data that we've given it. In this case, I'm going to have a girl walking towards the camera, and you can see that we've had some success, right? So I'll show you how to do that. We have base image. this would be larger than what we want, so we're going to scale it down. And this is a great little node here to scale it because it can keep the proportions and the aspect ratio automatically. The same problem that we had with the empty embeds is that it has to fit a certain criteria and dimension. It has to be rounded down to, it's technically 64, but you can use 16 or 8, but you really want it, both height and width need to be divisible by 16 or 32 and 64. The method for that is to just have this divisible by, and that will automatically scale it into a proportion that works. It just takes the maximum dimension. So if your image is wide and you know you can only generate 700 pixels wide on your PC, then you just put that at 60 and drop this down below, and these will automatically fit. We have the number of frames. The same issue applies. Your total frame count and the resolution is what's going to consume your VRAM, plus the size of all these models. And all those models really add up, right? But you need to make sure that you're using the image to video, unlike the previous, which is text to video. That seems pretty self-explanatory. And then again, remember, change your block swap so that you're balancing out and you want to max out your VRAM. You can install the monitor here that's in Comfy Manager, pick a monitor, look at your VRAM usage here, and you want to get that near the maximum. We're going to hit enter, and I'll just show you while we're waiting for this to generate that we have our VAE that's required to encode this image. And so the really popular thing to do with a lot of these workflows you'll find is to use these little nodes. It's like a bridge, an invisible bridge. Instead of connecting the noodle, what it's doing is it's really just doing that. I particularly left this workflow as a flow. I want you to see how things are connected. I don't particularly like them packaged up into all one big neat grid. I find that difficult to understand how it all interacts together. One thing you've probably found if you've experimented with Comfy is that workflows get really bloated. We all just keep adding to them, and particularly why I wanted to make sure that this was all exposed so that you can see how one thing links to another. One thing with Stability Matrix is that you can just pull up the log here and have a little look at the generation, how long it's going to take. And we're going to skip some frames. That's not a great estimate because remember we're using the T-cache speed up. And you can see that big jump, boom, right there. I don't know if you caught that. Jumped a whole bunch of steps. So let's say you've added to this workflow, you're really happy with it, and you want to go back to text to video. Simply change this image embed to this image embed and simply draw a noodle out and change your model, and that's it. And now the prompt won't rely on the reference image. You'll also notice that there's an N image, which is really great. So if you want to do first and last frame and have the control over where the video is gonna end up, then you can use this process where you take the copy and paste the image, load a new image here, attach that to end frame, and it'll let you figure out what you want to do and how you want to control the video that way. And there we go, success. Looks very much like the last one. Everything's going to be slightly different. The first time I did this, the car was going backwards, so that happens. It's not you, it's just AI. Alright guys, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. If you found it useful, please leave a comment below. If I missed something, comment. I'll pin it at the top. If you could do the like and subscribe thing, that helps the algorithms out a lot. And yeah, peace.